Welcome to episode 11 of the Eastside Morales Podcast. I'm your host, Rick Garcia Vega. And on this week's episode of the Eastside Morales Podcast, we have Ras Beats. Ras is a producer based out of NYC, specifically the borough of Queens. A little bit about Ras, he reached out to me via Instagram and wanted to send some music my way. Once I got a chance to listen to the music, I wanted to invite him on as a guest. I mean, this guy's got a really dope project. His latest release, it's called Control Your Own. He has an all-star cast, a star-studded list of MCs on that project. You got Rock Marciano, Elzai, Master Ace, OC, Eastside Morales Podcast alum, UFO Feeve. That's just to name a few. You know, the list goes on, you know. So I wanted to talk to Ras about, coming up in Queens. You know what I'm saying? Something I learned is that he came to Queens at an early age via Denmark. So I wanted to kind of find out what that was like, coming up. We also talked about, what it took to put this project together. I mean, you heard the list of artists that's on this project, and think about the work that it took to get, to lock in these features. And not just to lock in these features, but actually get these guys in the studio and record. So we talk about, those studio sessions as well as, the other sessions that were, recorded from different locations and, putting that together and the final touches and, just everything that coincides with, your first release. Actual release on a record label. So we talk a little bit about that. We talk about, exploring different options as a producer, being open to those opportunities. So with all that said, let's get into it. Ras Beats, Eastside Morales Podcast. Let's go.
Check. You already know what it is, nigga. But yeah. Yo. With no pressure. 5 birds stone the compressor. When I'm a dresser. Silk shirts in the leather dresser. My predecessors on a stretcher. Cuban heifer. Vanessa like I'm Hugh Hefner. Possessor. Candy apple red Tesla. Check the texture. Silky as my connect Hector. With Malcolm X on the projector. Cognac. Fucking every sex position in the zodiac. Smooth like the way goalie acts. Send a hoe with your ass. You wake up like, yo, where my rollie at? Take the homies with the goalie mask. The Mosey pass. We bust the same guns, monster Cody blast. You rockin' ponies with your phony ass. You know me ass. I don't even give Coney the pass. I'm complex like Napoleon has. I'm sitting cozy in jazz. You sitting lonely in a sodium bath. My bitch trophy. Hawaiian Sophie. Waistline 100 Cokie. Lit up a bogey. You flow to me as karaoke. The pad is smoky and my back is soapy. My whole coat be like Alistair Crowley. Cats that know me know I blast coolies and take baths with the Uzi. Slim bitch, butter ass juicy. Watusi, 2 seats in the coupe soupy. Red top, Danny Bonaducci. Drop that. That's what it is. Peel it. Rollin'. Beat that Tracy, nigga. Yeah.
Welcome to Eastside Morales Podcast, man.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me.
Cool. You might hear some cat in the background, man. I don't know what's up with this cat right now, but she's one of the
Okay. Feeling party, huh?
Yeah, I don't know what's up with her.
Okay.
So, first of all, I want to thank you for coming on. I've had a chance to digest your project, over these past couple of weeks. I also did some a little bit of research on you as well. So,
okay.
I just want to find out a little bit more, So,
okay.
You're from Queens, but
yes,
originally you're from Denmark. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I kind of split my life so far between Denmark and Queens, New York. I came here about 20 years ago, so I feel both places are my home. But yeah, absolutely. European and New York all in one.
Okay. Now, when you moved to Queens, being that you were from from Denmark,
Mm-hmm.
how was the reception toward you? I know Queens is like the ultimate melting pot, but just for your experience, how was that for you?
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, the part of Queens I live in, has always been a mixture. Like it's Greek, it's Brazilian, it's a little bit of everything really. So I never really felt like I stood out or anything like that. It's more like New York is the kind of place that it probably takes you a minute to get used to. And once I got used to it, like I felt comfortable. It's Queens is mostly anyways in my experience, like it's a pretty welcoming, to immigrants and different people and stuff like that. And me myself being an immigrant, I always feel comfortable here. So yeah, that's I could just kind of stuck around and made it my home.
So how was it going back to Europe for you? Was it did you go back often, like every summer and things like that, or was it certain time periods going back and forth?
Just kind of periodically to visit family and just kind of to check on things really. I gotta say, I've been here like 20 plus years now, so everything is a lot more connected now.
Yeah.
It's much easier to get in touch with people and all that stuff. So nowadays, and for the last whatever years, 5-10 years, it's been a lot easier. But before that, there was a little bit more cultural differences, I would say. And not that there isn't now, but it's just everything is more connected, everything is smoother now, so it definitely feels less. That feels closer than it's been before, I would say, right now.
Yeah, the internet made the world a lot smaller.
Yeah, exactly. The internet, just the fact of a song kind of hits the same time everywhere. You know what I mean? Like there's a new album comes out, a new song, whatever. It's not like people in New York get it before everybody else, which, sometimes before was the case. And that's definitely, kind of hits the same time everywhere now, which is cool. And it has for some years. And it's kind of dope. Like music can spread really, really fast that way. And there's definitely some cool things that can happen from that, for sure.
Yeah, I definitely think it's more pros than cons when it comes to this new way that we're able to connect to each other.
I mean, it's easy to reach like-minded people. You know what I mean? Like, I can reach out to somebody in Croatia, France, Sweden, whatever. If I get the info, I can shoot them a song real quick. If they mess with it, they can play it that night. That's definitely, that's beautiful. And just a way to connect with like-minded people, like you, like anybody else. It's dope, huh? It's definitely more plus than minus. Definitely I agree with that.
Definitely. So let's talk about Control Your Own.
Okay.
Let's go a little bit before we get to Control Your Own. Let's talk about how you got there. From my understanding, you started your own label. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Worldwide Recordings. That's my label that I run, and that's this is the first album, but the fourth release on there. So yeah, it took a minute to build up to a full length album, but I wanted to do it right, make sure I kind of had everything lined up. But yeah, the label, the first thing we put out was in 2003. So that's been a minute. And before the album, we put out 2 singles and an EP, and also had like a mixtape floating around in 2010 or 12 or something like that. So, couple minor things, mainly under the radar. So we try to kind of step out of that shadow on this one.
Okay. So what does it take to release an album on an actual label? I mean, I know it sounds easy, and a lot of people say, hey, I got my label and things like that. But for some reason, I think you really have a label, and it's not just
right.
So
yeah.
Make my label records. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, I mean, especially now, but really always, like, I've come across people, and as I'm sure a lot of people listening have, that are like, I have a label, and sometimes that really just means that you want to have a label and you came up with a name for your label, and that's your aspiration to have a label, and that's cool. You know what I mean? Work towards what you want to do. But as far as, to me, the difference between wanting to have a label and actually having a label, is be able to put releases together, know how to plan release dates, know how to get your album, recorded, mixed and mastered correctly, get the artwork done right, get it to the right DJs, get it to the right bloggers and, people who do podcasts and who write about music, whatever. So there's a lot of parts to running a label, and it's, it's difficult for one man team or a couple man team to get that right, but definitely, there's a lot of know-how and a lot of, you gotta have some experience behind it to really actually run a label. So I think that's one of the differences between running a label and just kind of be like, yeah, I have a label. There's a know-how and just the ability to get stuff done.
So what are some of your experiences that led you to this point?
Me personally, I mean, I produced some records for some people here and there, and a lot of my stuff was really under the radar. I have a nice catalog of stuff that's never been released, which is kind of like every producer, MC's kind of nightmare. Like, you do songs for other people and it doesn't see the light of day. So, I moved a lot under the radar, and I'm definitely trying to kind of, step out of that now and trying to, present my music a little bit more out there to the world. So what led me to it was just, DJing, being a fan of music, producing songs for other people, and just be like, just kind of studying how other labels did their stuff. What were the DJs they got it in the hand of? What were the magazines? What were the blogs? What were the, other people they got it to, and just apply that really. So yeah, DJing and producing, I would say that led me to, to starting my own label, and just, I always been buying records, for DJing and for production and stuff. So I always studied the record labels and kind of try to, figure out how does this actually work, like how a label is successful, and just, really try to apply that to my situation, and just not wanting to wait for other people's approval, having creative control, being able to do the music that I want to do without needing to get anybody's okay. That's really big for me. So, it's a combination of those things.
Okay, so creating the label is one thing. Distribution is another thing. Now, is that still like a goal for someone with a startup label with the advent of this technology of iTunes and SoundCloud and things like that? How beneficial is it to have distribution?
I mean, as far as physical products, I think it's a really specialized market. You know what I mean? Like I did the vinyl and I did the CDs on this to have them, because I kind of looked at it like there was a certain amount of people that still, wanted the physical product. It's definitely, I think, less and less.
Okay.
Like you can, if you do well with your music, that's through digital, that's through digital sales, and that's through, streaming and all that stuff. At least in my experience, the physical formats, like that's an addition, you know what I mean? That's something that's dope to do. And I came from that, vinyl DJ kind of school of thought, where if it's on vinyl, then it's a real release. But it's really more about, I think, at least in my opinion, it's more about getting your stuff out there, digitally, having it accessible on all those type of sites, and having people be aware that it's out there. And also, with that being said, like everything is changing. Yeah, everything is up in the air right now. Like, I'm sure you heard people talk about like this album's still relevant, all those kind of things. So it's a time of change right now for sure. So I think distribution is less important. It's more about people being aware of your music and being able to know that it's something that you go check out.
Yeah, I agree. Distribution may not have as much
power as it
Right.
used to because of the physicals. But would
Right.
you say that like marketing and promotion, hiring an agency would be something beneficial to do, or is it more of just like an organic grassroots push?
I mean, if you could do it organically, that's the best way to do it. If you can get people to check your music,
which is very hard to do without.
Exactly.
Without
Exactly. Like I think it's fewer people who could do it without a cosign, without the right promotion behind it, just without that push. It's few people that can do it without that. So I think most things are still, a necessity to get it out to the right people, so people can hear about your music. I mean, if you could do it just organically, that's a beautiful thing. But that's I don't know what percentage it is, but it's a small percentage for sure. Definitely.
So what about the marketing and promotion? Is that something would you hire a company to do that, or is that not in? Is that like down the line, or is that something you've done already?
Yeah, we did a little bit for the first official single we did, which was With No Pressure with Rock Marciano. We did some pretty heavy promotion push on that. And got it charted #1 on a couple like college lists, college DJ lists and stuff like that. So that one was the one we pushed the heaviest, and then the album came right after that. And we also did some push.
And that was With No Pressure, correct?
Yeah, exactly. That was With No Pressure. And we also did some push for God Bless, which is featuring J Biz and AG from Digging in the Crates. So we did some on those two in particular, and then some of the album. And it's definitely beneficial. Like if people are doing projects and it's in the budget, I would definitely say that's definitely worthwhile for sure. That'll definitely help your the sort of visibility of your project.
Okay. Well, being that we're talking about your project, Control Your Own, let's get into it, man. I want to kind of talk about what it takes to put something like this together, because you're obviously you're a producer, you make the beats as well, but you have to also being running your own label, you have to serve as an executive producer as well. So you gotta send out. Well, I'm assuming you're doing this yourself, where you're sending out these emails and locking in these features, making sure everything meets proper timing, and things like that. So can you kind of talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of first and foremost, like, I always look at the music comes first. So the first thing I looked at was like, who do I want to get on this project, and people like Rock Mars, OC, Sadat, J Biz, who's my man, just a lot of people that I was like, I had my sort of checklist. So that was first, how do I get these people? Some of them I was able to just get in touch with firsthand, that, I had prior relationship with them. Some people I had the network to get to. And then after that, it was like also along the music, but make sure it makes sense. Like I wanted the album to flow like my album featuring different MCs. I didn't want it to play like a compilation where it's all over the place and it's like, it doesn't have a flow to it. So I wanted to have a flow to it and just play like a whole album that you could put on and just let rock from beginning to end. And as far as the business side, like, it definitely helped me having done a couple of projects before, because I knew about like, making sure people get to the session on time, making sure I get a good performance out of people, giving people the right beats, a couple of tracks where I combined a couple of people had different MCs. I wanted to make sure that they flow together, the two of them. And then the business, just prior experience, man. Like, how do I get this record out there? How do I get the vinyl distributed? How do I get the digital out there? How do I get it promoted? How do I get it? And I did, probably a good like 6 months of research while, sort of the finishing stages of the album, where I kind of read everything I could about, promotion and getting it out there and those type of things, because it's, in the last, I would say 5 years, it's pretty drastically moved from magazines to blogs and websites. So, just being aware of all those things. So I prepared myself before it was time. So I would say prior experience and then just some networking and some studying on it, really. Yeah, I definitely studied for this. Definitely did that.
Okay, so did everyone that you originally planned make the album? Like, were there some people that you weren't able to lock in, or were you able to get everybody you wanted to on there?
Yeah, I kind of had a list, and I'm happy to say, man, I kind of got everybody that I had on that list. There isn't anybody that I remember that I was like, yeah, I want to get him, or her for that matter. It was. I was fortunate enough to kind of get everybody that I wanted to. And I also kind of made sure from the beginning that I kind of locked it down to like 10, 12 people, and then, kind of just took it from there. So yeah, I was able to get everybody I wanted to. I mean, there's still plenty of people out there I want to work with. As far as the album, like, yeah, I got who I wanted to get on it. So that was a dope feeling too.
Okay. Now, somebody that you have on the album that we've had on the show is Steve. I've been a fan of Steve for I used to have a blog a few years back, and so that's how I learned about Steve, and he's a really dope artist. So it's pretty cool to see him on your project, because I think he's somebody who has the talent to have a bigger following, to grow more. So talk about that. Talk about how you got Steve on there. How you guys?
Yeah, basically, I mean, Steve did an album. You might know this one, Around My Way. That was produced by a guy called Element, a producer named Element, who he's a good friend of mine, and he passed me that album a couple of years ago. And I was like, yo, this is a dope album. Like, who is this guy? And he was telling me about him. He's this kid from Harlem he's working with. So I got to a point where I was a couple of tracks from being done with my album. And so I basically was like, yo, Feeve would be kind of dope on this track I had. So I reached out to Element. He put me in touch with Feeve. I sent the beat to him. We made it happen pretty easily. We linked up in the studio, and so it was pretty smooth. It's always smooth when you get that connection and people who's working with somebody that makes it a lot smoother. So yeah, that's how the front line with Feeve came about. Just start doing a project with it and going from there.
And how about Rock Marcy? How did that one? How'd you connect that one?
Oh, Rock. I used to work at a record spot called Sound Library in New York, and I actually met Rock through Large Professor in there. So, like, I had the connection with Rock, and once I was working on the album, I was like, yeah, Rock is one of those people I need to get. Like, he's one of my favorite. Like since the UN, he's been one of my favorite MCs. So I was like, man, I got to get him on here, and I knew I wanted to give him a certain type of beat. And once I made that beat, with No Pressure, I was like, yeah, this is the one. And I sent it to him, and, we made it happen. And yeah, he's definitely one of my favorites. And I know a lot of other people too. Like, he's people are feeling him. So it was definitely good to get him on the project.
So how long did it take to put this whole project together? I know you said you did about 6 months of research and things like that, but as far as actually putting the whole project together, because did you record the majority of the project with the artist there in the studio?
Yeah, most of it I did. Like whenever possible, I did. Like Cool Spheres in LA, so he sent me the vocals. Eastside sent me his vocals from Detroit.
Yeah.
Who else? A couple other people, but mainly it was in the studio. Like whenever I can, I always like to get in the studio with somebody just to kind of vibe and I think you get the best product that way. Like, a lot of people are able to send you stuff and it just fits, so even though you weren't in the studio together, it's still it still works. I just prefer personally to be in the studio, but yeah, so most of it was done, except for a couple of songs. It was all done in the studio with me and the artist together and stuff. So yeah.
And that was everybody in New York, right? That you were with that. Like,
yeah, we recorded it. We recorded out of the spot in Manhattan. So yeah, it was all done here. And as far as you asked me, as far as the album, putting it together, it probably took all included maybe like 2 years. It took a minute. I definitely, it can work faster, but when you have a lot of different people and their schedule and, I don't want to get just fast songs from people. I want you to sit with the beat and, if it takes you a minute to write it, it takes you a minute, but definitely with people's schedules, it makes it a lot, it's a lot more moving parts to getting a project like this done. So probably about 2 years, the whole thing.
And that's why I refer back to you having an actual label as opposed to just saying, this is my idea of a label. Because I was looking on your website and I saw the photos of you having these artists in the studio, and I'm thinking to myself, this is somebody who really invested in putting this project together. So
most definitely.
And to hear it took 2 years, I mean, that's somebody who's focused and really,
absolutely
to get that done.
Yeah.
How's the reception been? I mean, I know there's a lot of music out there, man, and music's so so digestible now. We take it in, and it's like one day, and then a couple of days later, it's like it never happened. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So for you, putting in 2 years of this project, and then finally getting the chance to release it, how do you feel your return on your investment has been? And I'm not talking financially. I'm talking about in regards to, just finally accomplishing, getting this project done, and then just the reception.
Yeah, I mean the reception has been really good. Getting a lot of good feedback, response on it. It's definitely like I know what you're saying. It's definitely like Master Ace's album from a while back, Disposable Arts, that definitely fits right now. Like it's all about the next. Did you hear this? Did you hear that? And so there's some of that. I feel like when you do an album, you got to try to make people stop for a minute and listen to it. And I still get people now. Even though it's been out for a minute, I still get people like, oh yeah, I got to check that out. Oh, I got to check that out. Oh yeah, I'm going to check that out. So you realize you got to keep hitting people in the head with it. You got to keep letting them know, like, check out this album. It's like it's easy to get the music out there, like we spoke about earlier, but there's so much of it. There's so many albums and mixtapes and songs and all this stuff. So
there's so much going on. So much going on. Like, I gotta check that out too.
Yeah. So it's like I'm still, if I hear an artist, like whether you're a producer or a rapper, whatever you are, if I hear somebody that catches my attention, my thought is still like, oh, I want to hear an album from this person. But that's not necessarily where everybody's head is at right now. So I think that's the challenge, is you got to get people to, get people to chill for a minute and listen to a project and, not just give it like 30 seconds of their time. But no, it's been good, man. It's been good. I'm definitely good so far. Definitely feeling good about it.
Now, being that you are from Denmark, is there now? I'm talking about, like, when was the last time you went to Denmark?
Last year, like in the summertime, so it's pretty recent.
So, do you go fairly often throughout these years?
Usually like once or twice a year. Usually pretty regularly.
Okay, so now that the world is smaller, what is it the hip hop scene like out there? From your experience?
I mean, I think it's a lot like here. A lot of the popular stuff is the same, which is not necessarily my favorite style, but a lot of that stuff is hitting, but a lot of people also into the more gritty stuff. So I think it's similar to here. Like there's a lot of there's a lot of Drake fans. Nothing against him, but there's a lot of people that like stuff that's mainstream hip hop. And then there's people that like more unpolished or whatever you want to call it. So it's similar to him, man. It's not as different from here as it used to be as far as the music scene. It's definitely more connected.
Yeah, I mean, I asked because a lot
mm-hmm.
of, and I think it's changed more over the past few years, but
right.
I think the lack for a better word, misconception is that Europe is all about the boom bap sound and this and that, because a lot of the artists here in the U.S. that represent that culture, have been able to successfely tour throughout, a continent, over the past few years. But I have been hearing the same thing similar to what you've been saying as far as, more of that mainstream, sound, and maybe not even mainstream, because you have a lot of these younger artists that, where it's not that boom bap sound. These younger kids are starting to get more recognition, because as the culture gets older, it's still a fairly young genre. Right. When you're talking about rap music. Mm-hmm. But I think I was just trying to find out what specifically what how your area was responding to this type of sound, and specifically like to your project. Did you do any type of promo out there? I
did some of that. I sent it to some DJs, in Denmark specifically, playing that sound. Not that sound, but more. I'll send my record to anybody open, to playing, my style of production, my style of hip hop. So I got some DJs over there that played it. I think a big thing though is like, since hip hop came from here, like a lot of people kind of just take it for granted, and they're not really that impressed by it. Where I think in Europe you still have a little bit of just sort of awe at times of the music. I think very similar to jazz in the 60s and the 70s, where a lot of jazz musicians went overseas and were living really good over there and were really appreciated. And I guess it's like that a lot of times when an art form comes from a particular place. It's kind of like it's always been there, so you're not really that impressed by it, because it's just here, right? Like, it's just always been there. Whereas if it's from somewhere else, then you're a little bit more appreciative of it. It just becomes more, I don't know, it becomes more something you value, I guess. And I think there's some of that with Europe and Japan, where, just the fact that it didn't, people have been making it there for years, but the fact that it didn't originate there, kind of I think that gives people a different appreciation of it. So I think that's part of it, but I think it's leveled out a lot for sure. It definitely has.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. About jazz, I've heard that comparison between, hip hop and jazz. But hip hop is so wide and so many different genres and lanes, and it's grown so much. Even in the States, you can attest to this. It's more about who's the coolest, you know what I'm saying? And and let's get rid of the old guys, you know what I'm saying? And that's like the way. And I think that's a society thing, man. It's not just. I don't think it just pertains to hip hop music. Because even people, I can't really speak on too many other genres, because I know people talk about like, rock legends are respected and things like that. And I think to an extent, the same way, I feel the same thing can be applied to hip hop, because we would consider a Jay-Z, one of our legends. You know what I'm saying? Wu-Tang still does well when they tour. Nas still has big shows in the U.S. I'm talking about strictly in the U.S. But I think the ones that some of the the people that came before us, you know what I'm saying, get forgotten and lost in the mix, you know what I'm saying? And so thank God for these other countries that accept this sound.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely feel like, you know, if you tell people about the Furious Five or about Run DMC and you know, your artists like that are and were really well known, you're not going obscure. You're just going back in time. A lot of people don't care about that. They're like, this is not now. I don't care. And it's like, yeah, but these guys laid the foundation for what you do. So if you just dismiss that, like that's ignorant on your part. And I understand, like, if you're a certain age, then you care about right now, you know. But if you're in your mid to late 20s and you do hip hop or you really into hip hop, and you don't care about the people that originated it, like, to me that's strange. Like, you know, if I see, you know, if I were to, you know, walk around and walk into any of the Furious Five or Run DMC, any of those guys, like, you know, I have in the past, and I will, you know, show those guys the utmost respect, because it's like, you know, forget me making music, just as far as how this music has impacted my life. Like, I have so much respect for those type of pioneers, and I think they are, you know, they're largely forgotten, and they're not deemed relevant and stuff like that, and it's kind of unfortunate, man, because that's, you know, again, they laid the foundation. It's like they developed techniques, you know, that you can trace directly to now, and understand that, like, you know, Melly Mel's way of rhyming is not what you hear now. But, you know, you got to look at the history and see that it's all connected, man. It's all connected.
It's like the first street, you know,
right.
The Message is like the first street record, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're talking about what you actually see out there.
Yeah,
you know, but I think a lot of it falls on, quote unquote the OGs, you know what I'm saying? Like, you put these young kids onto this music. It's like a fine line, you know what I'm saying? Like, I have a 12-year-old, you know what I'm saying, 12-year-old daughter. You know, she's into hip hop, but she likes what all the other 12-year-olds like, you know what I'm saying? But that doesn't stop me from putting her on to what, you know, that I got put on to, you know, listening to, you know, the different artists that I came up listening to. She may not like everything, but she'll gain appreciation for it down the line. Just like for me growing up, I'm Puerto Rican, so like in my household, I heard a lot of the, you know, the Fania records, you know, the and Hector Lavoe and all that stuff. And when I was a kid, I was just like, oh man, turn this off, man. I don't want to hear this stuff. Older, I grew more of an appreciation for it, and I listen to it now. You know what I'm saying? So I think in due time, a lot of these kids that came up on these artists, or a lot of these kids that were put onto these artists at a young age that may not really want to admit it or really want to talk about it, will eventually get to appreciate it. But we are living in a different time, and the music does evolve and will evolve and will continue to evolve.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're dead on. Like, I think it's true. Like, there's a difference between teaching, you know, kids and young people about music and just preaching to them. You know what I mean? Like, yelling at them or telling them you got to do this, you know, got to do that. There's a big difference. And also, you know, you gotta let people have their thing. You know what I mean? Like, you know, when I first started listening to hip hop, I didn't want to hear disco. You know, that was people before me. I didn't want to hear that. I wanted to hear hip hop, and like, you know, people that get turned up and lit and all that stuff. Like, you know, that's their thing. You got to let them have their thing. And I think a lot of like you said, a lot of OGs instead of showing, you know, the younger generation stuff and kind of teaching them, you know, sometimes it falls to like, you know, just yelling at people and telling them that music sucks. And you know, it's, you know, it makes sense that, you know, an 18-year-old and a 38-year-old, or, you know, whatever, that they listen and they make different music. That's, you know, that's how it's supposed to be. You know, it makes sense. And, you know, so you got to teach kids to not yell at them like that.
Yeah,
I remember when I was a teenager, I didn't want to be yelled at. I didn't want to be scolded, you know, and being told what to like and what to listen to. So, you know, that doesn't matter what the year is. That's the same. So, yeah, definitely.
People forget that, though. I think people forget that they forget to keep that in the front of their mind that you used to be this age once, you know what I'm saying? And now this kid's looking at you and you like trying to tell you, you know what I'm saying? But the kid's looking at you, you gotta put yourself back into their shoes. Like when somebody was telling you something, you was like, shit, whatever.
Yeah,
I know what you're saying. But eventually you're gonna figure it out, you know what I'm saying? But that's why I think it's important that, you know, with your project that you put these type of artists on there, because a lot of these artists, and I'll use Rock Marcy for an example. I believe a lot of people right now that's probably in our age bracket, a lot of his fans, you know what I'm saying, are listening to his music in their car, and their kids are sitting in the back seat, and they're like, Dad, Mom, change this shit, you know, thinking to themselves in their head. But down the line, they're going to be like, yo, I rock with this. And they're going to be playing whatever streaming device they're going to have in the future, and your record's going to pop up. You know what I'm saying? And, so I think it's important that, you know, people like yourself continue to carry the torch for this sound that just caught us. You know what I'm saying? That was so influential to us now, and we continue to love it, and we just want to keep putting it out there, you know what I'm saying? We don't have to change with the times. You can respect it, but you still got to do you and keep that torch flaming, you know what I'm saying?
Right. I think there's a lot to that, and I think it's, you know, the first thing is like at a certain point when you do music, you figure out what you're good at, and you got to have some conviction around it. So it's like if your sound, you know, you know, it's like, you know, samples, drums, you know, boom bap stuff. If that's the most popular sound, it's easy enough to stick with it. You know what I mean? It's easy enough because that's the most popular. You know, but once it's one of the sounds out there, you got to have conviction. You got to stick with it if that's what you're good at. Oh, you know, and I'm not saying that you can't adjust and you can't, you know, grow and you can't do all those things. But there's just some people that I've heard over the years where it's like they change so much that I'm like, I can't hear your sound anymore. Like I can't hear what you're good at because you're trying to make everybody happy. Yeah. And so you definitely have to, you know, it's like Guru, rest in peace, said, you know, Gangstar had certain formulas, but they update them. You know, and that's very much the way I look at my sound. Like I have my formula for my sound. I know how to make my music, but I'm trying to add new things to it. So I'm not trying to make the same beats that you've heard 10 times before, you know, from me or other people. I'm trying to expand on it, but at the same time, I want to keep that feeling. And then you gotta keep the conviction, man. You gotta stick with it. You know, if that's what you're good at.
Core intact, that core sound intact.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like, you know, so me personally, like this music is so meaningful. So, you know, throughout my life, it's been such a huge part of it. Listening to it and making music and just kind of, you know, breathing it. So to me, it's just like, I gotta stick with, you know, not like real hip hop and what isn't real hip hop and what's real, but just what's real to me personally. You know what I mean? Like you know, it's got a certain grit to it. It's got a certain funk to it. You know, just you know, when it hits, it gives you a certain feeling, and that's, you know. So I got to stick with that, man. That's what I do. Like I realized that already. That's what I do. So I stick with it, and I work on it, and I, you know, work on it to always get better at it and come up with different, you know, just add new little twists to it and stuff like that, but still keep that same core. You know what I mean? Keep that still. You know, just a little bit grimy, a little bit like, you know, you make a face when you hear it, and just, you know, keep the funk for sure. Like, you know, the funk isn't there and all that much stuff I hear. So I definitely, for me personally, I gotta keep the funk in there. So the funk is sometimes missing. So you gotta keep at it.
You gotta keep it funky. So let me ask. So being that, you know, we all started off as fans first. I mean, does it feel surreal to you, or do sometimes you just sit back and be like, damn, I just released a project with OCs, you know what I'm saying, with Rock Marciano, you know what I'm saying, like AG, you know what I'm saying? Like, these are people that, you know, that we came up on. You know what I'm saying?
And
being able to actually work with them, I would imagine that's you'd have to think back sometimes and just be like, whoa, man, that's pretty damn cool.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man, it was definitely. I mean, like OC, I've been I've been listening to him since he first came out.
Time's up.
When we recorded, after we recorded his verse and we were chilling for a minute, I was like, man, I gotta tell you this story, and I still remember the first time I heard Time's Up. I got out of the subway, I turned on I had a Discman or something with a radio on it. I turned on Hot 97 or whatever station it was, and I heard Time's Up for the first time. And I just remember I was walking down the street and he started rhyming and I just stopped. You know what I mean? I just stood there because it's like I couldn't walk and listen to it at the same time. And so to have that kind of impact with an artist and then be able to work with him, that's beautiful. Like there was a lot of people I told, man, I was like, yo, it was an honor. Thank you for doing the project. Thank you for being part of it. And, just showing that respect because, him, AG, Master Ace, so not just people I listened to for like 20 years, and now I have the privilege of being in the studio with them. Like that's incredible. Like that was that's like a dream come true. I mean, it's dope recording, with people like Steve, people like Subcon, Blackistan, who are great at what they do, but they're a little bit newer to my ears. Like that's great
definitely.
too. Just making good music is a beautiful thing. But yeah, those legendary cats I don't know how many times I listened to Runaway Slave. So being in the studio with AG is that's Andre the Giant, so being in there with somebody like him, it's you're like wow, much respect. I study music, man. I study hip hop. I study, old records, old jazz, old soul, old rock, all that stuff for beats. I mean, I studied hip hop, so it's being fortunate to work with people and get good products out of people. Like that's a blessing, man. It's a blessing.
So were you able to get Master Ace and Sedalex in the studio, or were those?
I was in the studio with Sadat, but Ace sent me his song. He was before we even booked the session. He sent it to me, and I wanted to get in the studio with him, but once he sent it to me, I was like, okay, I'm happy.
Yeah, he's a hard guy to pin down because he's a global.
Yeah.
Out of everybody, there, he's probably globetrotting the most. Everybody's got their fair share, but I follow him on Instagram, and he's always somewhere.
Yeah, Ace is definitely he's traveling. He does a lot of tours, a lot of shows, and yeah, I wanted to get in the studio with him, but again, when he sent me the song, I was like, I can't. Excuse me, I can't complain. This is
you can't recreate that. You know what I'm saying?
This is what I was looking for. So we didn't need to be in the studio. Like that was you knew what to do. So that's all good. That's definitely all good.
So what's next? I mean, you continuing to promote the project?
Yeah, I'm still promoting the project. Still just put out we put out an instrumental version of it. All 14 tracks, instrumentals. We put out the deluxe version a couple of months ago that has 2 remixes. There's a With No Pressure remix and there's a remix of God Bless. So those are the 2 most current things. Still promoting it, still getting out there, still selling the vinyl, the CDs, and all the digital stuff. And started working on something new as well. No real details yet, but definitely working on the next project.
And I see, I'm looking on your page here, and you got a shout out from Marco Polo.
Yeah.
Is that somebody you friends with? You keep in touch with?
Yeah, I mean, I got those. I got a quote from him, and a quote from Eclipse and House Shoes and a couple other people, and it was basically people that I'm in touch with that was just like, hey, can you give me a little, couple of lines about the album, and I was fortunate to get everybody to hit me back with some nice, some nice lines. So, I met him, years ago when he first came to New York. Some people from Toronto introduced me to him. So, he's obviously killing it. So, yeah, man. Yeah, good dude too. Good dude.
All right, let me ask you this. Do you look into like licensing, like putting getting your music licensed and things like that, or are you strictly just trying to create that audio experience for just the listeners? I mean, I really don't know how to word this, but how some people they find different ways. The saying goes, in music there isn't just one way to make, you shouldn't be just relying on one way to make money in music. So it's licensing and, doing things like that, pursuing those options. Is that something you've thought about?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that a couple of people I know kind of put me on to that, and they played my stuff for some people and stuff like that. There's nothing that's come of it so far. I'm open to it. I mean, as long as it's not promoting something crazy that I can't be for myself, I'm okay with it. I really don't have a problem with it. I mean, there's a couple of times where you see something on TV and you're like, okay, damn, that almost sounds like my kind of production right there. Like, all right, that's cool. Like different little cartoons, little commercials or whatever. So I mean, not to be too much a purist about it, but if my music can stay the way it is, like I'm open to different things. Like I'm not too strict with as far as limiting myself to opportunities. If I change my stuff too much, that's probably not something I'll approach too much. But so if it could be my stuff, I'm open to it.
Yeah. Never compromise. Never compromise. All right. So since your last project took 2 years, 2 years to make, are you in the process of working on another one?
Excuse me. Yeah, I'm working on. I'm starting a couple of projects with where it's going to be more, focused around one MC.
Okay.
So I started like 2 of them, and we'll see which one is ready, before the other one. It's a different challenge. Like it's, instead of getting, 12 or 13 different MCs and making them sound like it's the same project, it's more about giving you different, it's giving you different sides of one MC. So I like that it's a little bit of a different challenge. But I'm definitely hoping and looking to release, something this year, an EP or an album this year, so it won't be too long. And when it's one artist, that's a lot easier to make happen. As well as I have a couple of Lucy's, a couple of one songs here, one songs there on the way. I did a couple of remixes and stuff like that. So, I have those coming, but as far as a project from my end, I'm definitely looking to do that this year, to do something else this year. So.
All right. We'll be looking forward to that. So before we wrap up, let the people know where to find you.
Okay, yeah. I mean, the easiest is just to go to rasbeats.com. That's RASBEATS.com. You can go on Twitter. That's Rasbeats, Rasbeats NYC on Instagram. I have a Facebook music page that's under Rasbeats as well. So everything is pretty easy to find my stuff out there. And as far as listening to it, buying it, streaming it, all that, it's on all the digital stores, all the streaming services and all that. So if you haven't, definitely check out the album and anything you want to get in touch for, whether it's production or remixes or whatever, just hit me on any of those sites.
Yes, check out his Bandcamp. You can listen to the whole album. You know what I'm saying? Purchase the physical. You know what I'm saying? SoundCloud streams are always good. Yes, sir. Okay, well, Ras Beats, man, I appreciate you taking the time out, man.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me.
It's a dope project, man. I was very very impressed and as well as fascinated on how you were able to get this all together, you know, because I can imagine what it was like, especially knowing that you got these guys in the studio as well. So I can only imagine what that was like. And, you know, somebody might look at the CD or whatever the case may be, look at the project and be like, oh, yeah, this is cool, but not realizing that, you know, someone put 2 years of their life, you know what I'm saying? That's 2 years of their life into putting this project, you know, for us, for our listening pleasure, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. It's, you know, there's a lot of moving parts, man, with an album with so many people, and I just worked, man. That's what it is. I worked hard on it. I was focused on getting it done. So, yeah, man, just, you know, thankful that I was able to put it together.
So, well, best of luck to you, man, and you know, I'll continue to support what you're doing, man.
I appreciate it.
Definitely be in touch, you know, through social media and things like that. Hopefully we'll connect one of these days in person.
Yeah, most definitely.
All right. Well, you take care, man, and again, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, most definitely. You too. Peace.
All right, peace.